Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a couple of mind-bending psychological truths that might just change the way you look at yourself and the world around you. Have you ever wondered why people double down on their beliefs, even when they're proven wrong? Or why your perfectly reasonable argument at a family gathering falls flat every single time? Well, buckle up, because it turns out that our brains are wired in some pretty surprising ways. And don't worry, no, we're not being paid to promote these books, though I wish. We just think they raise some fascinating questions that are worth exploring. Okay, so first up is this thing called cognitive dissonance. Now, that might sound like one of those terms your brain files under things to ignore, but stay with me. Cognitive dissonance is that squirmy, uncomfortable feeling you get when you're faced with two beliefs that don't match up, or when your actions clash with your values. So, what do we do when that mental itch kicks in? Do we rethink our choices? Admit we might be wrong? Of course not. Instead, we justify, rationalize, and sometimes even make up whole stories to keep that discomfort at bay. It's like when you spend way too much on that fancy gym membership and never go. But then tell yourself, well, I might use it more next month, and they do have great smoothies. That's cognitive dissonance in action. Tavris and Elliot Aronson dive deep into this idea in their book, Mistakes Were Made, But Not By Me. And they make a pretty compelling point. Admitting we're wrong is one of the hardest things for our brains to handle. Why? Because it challenges our very sense of self. Imagine telling your friend, "Hey, I think I might have made a bad decision," and their response is a big, reassuring nod. That's not how we react, right? No, we get defensive, we dig in deeper, and we find reasons to convince ourselves, and everyone else, that we were right all along. You bought that lemon of a car? Suddenly, you're praising the leather seats and how unique it looks on the road. We all do it. Politicians, CEOs, that one uncle who insists he's never made a bad investment. And once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. Spoiler alert, it's everywhere. Now, cognitive dissonance is just one part of why we stick to our guns, even when we're sinking in quicksand. The other side of this coin is what Jonathan Haidt talks about in The Righteous Mind: tribal thinking. This concept is the reason why your bulletproof, beautifully structured argument fails to convince your friend who swears pineapple belongs on pizza, or your cousin who refuses to switch political parties. Haidt explains that we, as human beings, are hardwired to belong to groups. It's a survival thing. Back in the caveman days, being part of a group meant you were protected from saber-toothed tigers and rival tribes. But in today's world, it's less about tigers and more about social identity. So, what happens when you belong to a group, whether it's a political party, a sports team, or just a friend group with strong opinions? You start to adopt the shared beliefs and values of that group. And when someone challenges those beliefs, your brain doesn't go, maybe they have a point. Nope. It sounds the alarm, throws up the shields, and defends that belief like your identity depends on it, because in a way it does. That's why facts alone rarely win arguments. Your stats and evidence might be as solid as a rock, but if you're up against someone's tribe, it's like throwing pebbles at a fortress. Our logical brain is the rider, and our emotions are the elephant. Guess what? The elephant's in charge most of the time, and it doesn't care how convincing your PowerPoint presentation is. So why should we care about all this? Because understanding cognitive dissonance and tribal thinking can actually make us better thinkers, communicators, and even better friends and partners. When you realize that your brain is wired to protect your beliefs and dodge discomfort at all costs, you can start to catch yourself in the act. The next time you feel that knee-jerk reaction to defend your opinion, take a second to pause. Ask yourself, am I holding on to this belief because it's actually true, or just because it feels better to believe it? And when you're trying to persuade someone else, remember that logic alone won't cut it. You need to show empathy. Try to understand where they're coming from and why they feel the way they do. Speak to their emotions, not just their logic. It's like Haidt says, the mind is like a rider on an elephant. Logic is the rider trying to steer, but emotion is the elephant that ultimately decides where you're going. And in the battle between the two, the elephant usually wins. So here's the takeaway. By understanding cognitive dissonance, you can learn to challenge your own thinking and grow from your mistakes, which, newsflash, doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And by recognizing tribal thinking, you can have more meaningful conversations and actually build bridges instead of adding bricks to the wall between you and others. The more we understand how our minds work, the better we can navigate this wild, noisy world. Thanks for sticking around and hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the quirks of the human mind and want more videos about how we think, act, and grow, don't forget to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. And hey, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with any other examples you know that support or contradict these ideas. Do you agree or disagree with the role of cognitive dissonance and tribal thinking in our lives? Share your stories, thoughts, and questions. Remember, the best way to learn is to keep questioning and stay curious. Until next time, stay curious.